Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Wednesday evening class tonight. We're so happy that you're all with us. If everyone can please get some tzedakah. We always like to start with giving, because how we give, that's how God's going to give to us. So it's like a revolving door. How we give, that's how God gives to us. So give generously. I'm going to put in the inbox all the names that we're going to say Tehillim for. So if everyone could read them, we're going to all say Amen. All Klal Yisrael should have healing. We want to start off with giving and asking and thanking. So thankful to all of you for being on this class. And thank you to Hashem for giving me the opportunity to do this class. And we want to ask that everyone should be healthy and well always. Amen. And really Mashiach should come. Okay. I'm just going to mute this. Can you? Sorry, we're going to take questions at the end if that's okay. And if anyone has any questions, just put it in the inbox for me and I'll answer as soon as possible. So we are very lucky tonight to have with us Mrs. Henya Laine from Crown Heights, Brooklyn, who I met at a wedding. It's not coincidence. And I told her a couple of weeks back, we shared a video of a woman passing by the Rebbe sharing that she hosts a Tuesday class, and the host went by. And I was telling her this whole story. And then the second woman that went by, the Rebbe told her to start off the class with tzedakah. And it was very interesting because I felt like that was a very big sign for me. And she was so excited to hear about this. And I was so happy to share with her. And I asked Henya if she'll share on the class. And she said, of course, which I'm so grateful. So we are going to start off the class with a short video of Mrs. Henya Laine and the Rebbe, and then she'll explain the video and the blessing. And we are so excited to hear from you tonight, some inspiring words about the Rebbe, who loved every person, Jews and non-Jews alike. And we are really excited to hear your story. So we're going to share the video now.
Judalet Zielen wurden 25 Jahre von unserer Chassidus. Judalet Zielen.
Ja, das soll ja mit solchen Zusammenhang mit dem Anniversary, das ist erreichen zusammen mit dem Anniversary. Ein Wandel, die sind zusammen, es werden 75 Jahre, die machen damit eine besondere Verbringung.
Amen.
Dann ist es schönes Feld.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Do you want me to talk now? So my name is Henya Laine, and I'm delighted to be here with all you beautiful ladies and girls and whoever. This video that you saw is so magnificent. Let me tell you what happened. Every Sunday for I think about 7 or 8 years, the Rebbe would give out dollars, and anybody was able to go past this holy rabbi. And it was our 25th wedding anniversary. So I stood on the ladies' line and my husband stood on the men's line. And he runs over and he goes, Henya, come quickly. I'm like, I don't like to push. The Rebbe is going to give me a bracha, fine. If not, I have a bracha just passing by. No, come quickly. I got permission that we should go together because it's our anniversary. All right, if you got permission, I'll come. So we go together. Now remember, it's my 25th wedding anniversary. Now, what do people usually say at your 25th wedding anniversary? They say, may you live to see your 50th wedding anniversary, right? So we're standing there. My husband tells the Rebbe, it's our 25th wedding anniversary. And the Rebbe repeats again, which anniversary? The 25th? He said, yes. So he said, well, Im Yirtzeh Hashem, please God, to your 75th wedding anniversary. And I'm listening, 75th? Oh my God, we're going to live together so many years. I'm like so excited. So you see my smile? I was being very polite, so just smiling a little bit. Then I went, I was like so excited. 70th wedding anniversary. He said, you will make a gathering for Bregan and you will add to the tzedakah. Most of you will add, and you should tell us good news. So I was so ecstatic. I ran home and I said to everybody, guys, you're invited. When I'll be 100 and my husband will be 100 or something. We're making a party. You're all coming. Don't forget. And I want to tell you something. We're going to hear more stories about the Rebbe. To my husband, to our 50th wedding anniversary, my husband had a stroke. So when he said 75th, please God, we should be healthy and we should be able to do it. And hopefully Mashiach will be here. So we'll all walk together, you know, in perfect order. So that's this gorgeous, gorgeous video. And to our, I think to our anniversary 3 years ago, our children found it in the archives. And they gifted us with this beautiful video. So I'm so ecstatic about it. And I want to take this bracha that the Rebbe gave me and my husband, and I want to share it with all of you. And I want to pass it on because, you know, like a light, when you have a candle, if you light another candle, everybody gets the same light. Nobody loses, everybody gains. So I am passing it on to all you beautiful ladies and all, you should all have this bracha. Okay, so I was asked by our beautiful Chaya. First of all, I want to say l'chaim, because it's a special day. I was asked by Chaya to speak about any topic I choose. And there are many, many beautiful topics, so maybe I'll do this another time. But today, I decided, since it's only a couple of days before Gimel Tammuz, the 3rd of Tammuz, which is going to be the Saturday, Shabbat, and it's the 28th yahrzeit of the passing of our holy Rebbe. So I figured I'd like to share some personal stories, not books, not stories from a book, just stories from myself, my connections. And I think when it's personal, it has so much more meaning. Plus the fact that everything that we learned from the audiences that we had with this great, great rabbi, everybody can take lessons from it. So I think hopefully you will all enjoy it. Some of them are a little spooky, sorry, but they're really good, so enjoy. First of all, I must tell you that our Rebbe loved everybody. If you had to give the Rebbe a middle name, it would be Ahavat Yisrael, Ahavat Olam. He loved the world, he loved Jews, he respected everybody. People came to him from all over the world, the greatest presidents, the smallest little Mr. Nobody. He treated everybody with the utmost respect. If you see videos, he waves to little children, and yet he ran this entire world. There's so much that, give me the book, okay, that he did that nobody knows about it. There's a book called My Story number 1 and number 2. And you'll read stories there that in your life, you cannot believe that one human being could do so much for so many people with so much affection and love and caring and giving up his time. It's just the most incredible human being that I've ever encountered, except for my husband. Okay, so the first story, I actually met the Rebbe upstairs. At the age of 6 years old, we escaped from communist Russia, which was a huge, huge, huge miracle in itself. And it took like 6 years for the American government to allow these Jewish refugees to finally get a visa to come to the United States of America. So for 6 years, we lived in Paris. It was a little bit difficult because we weren't permitted to work. We didn't have work papers. But you know how Jews are smart. Right away, my parents started a school for girls, because that's 6 girls. And the men started a school for boys, and they did a little bits of some things. But finally, we came to the United States of America in 1953. So from 1946 to 1953, we were in transition. Anyway, they put us up in a hotel in Manhattan. The hotel had 1 bed, a father, a mother, and 6 children. That's 8 of us. And it had 1 bed, and the bed came out of the wall. So I don't recall who slept on the bed, but I know for sure I didn't. Anyway, my parents had heard from somebody that there's going to be a Farbrengen. A Farbrengen means a gathering where the Rebbe is going to be speaking. And they got so excited because all their life they'd be saying, oh, I want to meet this great rabbi. I want to meet him. I want to meet him. So they came. My mother thought it would be, how long could it be? A half an hour, 2 hours maximum. So she came with a little dress, and the gathering started 9:30 at night, and it continued till like 3:30 in the morning. Well, guess what? My mother was frozen. She was literally frozen. She had a little thin dress because it was, well, it was like a fall day. At any rate, she couldn't leave. She was like so attached. She couldn't leave. But finally, they came back to the hotel and they called up the office and they said, we need to have an audience with this great rabbi. We have pressing questions. So they gave us an audience. I think it was for like 11 o'clock at night because of a lot of little babies, but we didn't enter like 3 o'clock in the morning. We finally walked in. So now you have to understand this. My father, my mom, and 6 little children. So it went from this, like 6 little girls standing. And we were very polite. We were already warned that you walk into the room, there's going to be chairs or very nice, more than a chair, like whatever. Anyway, and the Rebbe will ask you to sit. Please don't sit out of respect. Anyway, so my parents walked in. Now, we came here from Henya. That's the Jewish Federation. It was helping out Jews who were refugees. And they would give us, it was $18 a week. So my father took $36 and he put it into an envelope and he put it on the table of the Rebbe. Now, the Rebbe had a little room, wasn't such a big room, was full of books all over. You can still see that room today, full of books. It just had a desk, and the desk was very, very neat. There was nothing on the desk. He gave you total attention. So he took the money, he put an envelope, he put it down on his table, and then he took a little letter that he wrote all of our names and our mother's names, and he put that down, and then we stood at attention. And the Rebbe counted the money, and he looked at my father, and he looked at all the children, and he said, this is unbelievable. It's like really a father figure. He said, Russian Jews, my parents were Russian, Russian Jews are very giving Jews. They like to give. However, in America, there is a thing called saving. You should start saving some of your income. And I thought to myself, when my parents repeated the story, I thought to myself, how clever was the Rebbe? Because my parents, all their life, they only knew one thing, to give, to give, to give. Because all their life, they were so poor, they had nothing. So when they saw anybody who needed anything, they'd give the shirt off their back. They'd leave nothing for themselves. So because the Rebbe told them to save, and my father knows you have to pay attention, you have to listen to Rebbe, he began saving penny to penny to penny. And when my older sister got married, he said he had money to make her wedding, but that was it. After that, he had to take clothes for the other 6 daughters. But no, 6 girls and 6 girls, father 5, right? So at any rate, so that was our first lesson. It's important to save. Then the Rebbe asked my parents, where is the joint sending you? Was the Jewish distribution was from the Federation. And my parents said they're sending us to Cleveland, Ohio, but we don't know where Cleveland, Ohio is. We don't want to go. And the Rebbe said, why not? It's such a nice city. And my mother said, look, I was here the other day at one of your gatherings, and I saw so many women dressed dressed modestly with wigs on their hair, and men with beards. I want to raise my children in an open society where they can have religion and be proud of it and see everybody looks like them. Not the way we were raised in Russia, we had to hide. My father would walk around with cotton balls and a rag over his face because he had a beard. And in Russia, if you had a beard, they would give you 10 years in Siberia. So he had to cover up and always had a toothache. All his life, he had a toothache, right? So here, my mother sees everybody walking around like openly being Jewish. And my mother never had a wig. She always covered her hair. We have pictures of her, but they didn't sell wigs. They didn't want everybody to be religious in Russia. Not the communists and not the sexy. There were Jews who hated religion. So they kind of got the communists also. They knew exactly what to do. So they didn't allow wigs. So all her life, she wore a kerchief and she said, here I'm wearing, look how beautiful I look in this wig. I want my children to grow up under such a beautiful, holy area. So the Rebbe said, oh, don't worry. In Cleveland, they're nice people. There's a good school. There's kosher food. So my mom says, what's the matter? In America, there's no kosher food. In New York, there's no kosher food. In New York, there's no no school. And my father was turning purple. It's like, you don't talk like this to Rebbe. My mother didn't know. Her father was killed when she was a young girl. His crime was that he was a Moel, he circumcised Jewish children. That's all his crime was. He was such a beautiful man. So she wasn't raised with anybody about her. So she was just arguing. And we ended up in Cleveland, Ohio. And we came there and we were told that there was a rabbi called Rabbi Katz who's going to direct us to all the kosher products. So my mother calls him up and says, Rabbi Katz, excuse me, I have your phone number. I just came in from New York. Tell me where I can buy kosher milk. So he told him, Seal Test is kosher milk. Now, we don't know anything else. If somebody says it's kosher, it means it's kosher, right? So she went and she bought Seal Test milk and she took the cup and she was about to pour the milk inside and the phone rings. Hello, Mrs. Kazin. The Rebbe would like to know what kind of milk you drink. And she says, oh, don't worry. It's kosher milk. It's called Seal Test. And Rabbi Katz told us to buy it. And Rabbi Chadukah, who was the secretary of the Rebbe, said, listen, I want to tell you, this is 1953, ladies, that in 1953, the American government permits the bones of animals to be used as calcium in milk. So you cannot buy milk unless you actually make sure that it's Chalav Yisrael, which means kosher milk, watched by a human being, a Jewish person, could be male or female, how they milk the cows. So that took care of our milk. And for a long time, we lived on, you ready for this? Kool-Aid, water with a little bit of coloring. That was what we lived on, Kool-Aid. Then we were told where to get kosher bread. And we had to take, I remember, 3 buses to go and get kosher bread. And we never had fresh bread. Our bread was always frozen. So maybe that's why we're so healthy. We never ate any chocolate or ice cream because they never had a kosher chocolate or ice cream. I mean, it has an OU, but that's kosher, but it's not Chalav Yisrael. It's not milk watched by a Jewish man. So I think maybe that's why we have such good teeth, because we grew up, no chocolate, no ice cream, no sugar, except the Kool-Aid. Anyway, at any rate, the Rebbe said to my parents, you've got to make Chalav Yisrael, because every year my parents decided they wanted us to go back to New York, because even though Cleveland was a lovely town, but it wasn't the same. You didn't have so many people with beards, you didn't have so many people with wigs. And people were doing a lot of things that my parents was not up to par to our Judaism. So my parents came every year. My mother said, I'm going to work. They had no money. They were really immigrants working so many jobs. So she would, in those days they had diapers. Have you heard of diapers? Not Pampers, cloth diapers. And my mother would wash, she would bring cloth diapers to our house. I remember all the dirty, filthy things. And she'd wash them and cook them and wash them. Don't ask. I still remember how it went. And then she'd bring them back. And when she collected $18, she would take one of us with her on the Greyhound bus for 12 hours to New York. So every year we had an opportunity to go. Once every year, another child went. Either my father went or my mother went. So when my mother went to New York that year, the Rebbe asked her, so what are you doing for Chalav Yisrael, for the kosher milk? Oh, she said, my husband goes to the farm, to Greenbaum's farm. I don't know, I remember all these things. Must have been so traumatic. So he goes to Greenbaum's farm and he watches how they milk the cows. And then he comes home. I remember, ladies, these big, huge tin containers, massive. And half of this was fats. From the fat, my mother would make butter and cheese, and the rest she would cook in these big, big pots. So we should have, milk without any germs. And then the Rebbe said, well, what about other Jewish children in Cleveland? And she said, well, I don't know. I've spoken to the rabbis in the Telz Yeshiva. It's a very big yeshiva. And they've tried a few times and it hasn't worked. So the Rebbe said, well, then you have to try. Bottom line is, they got somebody, a mashgiach, a man who came and watched the milk. And we found out his name was Mr. Zaid, who was the mashgiach who watched the milk for the previous Rebbe in Warsaw. So we knew for sure he knew what he was doing. And eventually we tried to muster up courage. And we told all our friends in school, don't drink the milk. Don't drink the milk. It's not kosher. And you're kosher at home. So nobody drank the milk. And so the school had to provide them with chalav Yisrael, with kosher milk. And from the school, it went to the homes. And today, I'm happy to tell you that Cleveland has chalav Yisrael kosher milk. But what I wanted to tell you is, most people think about themselves. The Rebbe didn't think only about one Chabad family. He thought about the entire Cleveland, Ohio, everyone there. Everybody should have the high standards that we all have. So that was our first encounter. Another one, we used to go, like I told you, back and forth. So it was my turn to go again. Sorry, I remember when I went. And we lived very far from the school. We had to take a bus. We traveled an hour and a half by school bus. And one day I was late taking the test. I was, I don't know, maybe about 10 years old. And I saw the bus starting to move. And I knew if I don't get on the bus, I have to sleep in school. So I ran down the stairs and I ran across the yard and tripped and fell and bruised myself. And with that bruise, bleeding and all the dirt from the playground, I got on the bus, and after an hour and a half, I came home, and my foot was so swollen and different colors. It was horrible. My mother rushed me to the hospital, and they gave me, in those days, a penicillin shot, and they told me there was really very bad infection. I must take a penicillin shot every single day. Now, listen, ladies. I'm 11 years old. It's my turn to go to New York. I'm not giving it up for anything, even for my bruised foot. So I started to cry and I said to my mom, I'm going to New York. It's my turn to go with my father. He used to go for Sukkot. I'm going to New York. So my mother said, well, we have to give you a penicillin shot every day. Okay, I'll call her mother, my grandmother, Mrs. Mayasha Garelit. She'll take you to Dr. Zellickson, a doctor in Crown Heights, and you'll get your shot every day. It was like for 10 days I had to get a shot. They didn't have antibiotic in those days. You had to get the shot. And then you could go and do your thing. Anyway, she calls my grandmother, and I come and I said, Bobby, you got to take me to Dr. Zellickson. I need my shot because my foot is so infected. She said, don't worry. Come with me to the Rebbe and everything will be fine. Anyway, she just cleaned it. She put a little ointment. I don't know what she did. Put a Band-Aid on, and I went every day. It was incredible. Thousands of people. Oh my God, it was such a sight to behold. Everybody with their children and grandchildren, and everybody coming to 770 and singing and dancing and praying. It was so beautiful. We were so proud to be Jewish. Anyway, finally, I said to my grandmother, I think my foot's getting better without the penicillin shot. She says, don't worry. I wrote to the Rebbe that my granddaughter is coming and she has to get a penicillin shot for 10 days. And she's only here 10 days and I'm too busy. I live on the 4th floor. I have a daughter with 7 little babies. I've got to help my daughter. I got to run to hear the Rebbe speak. I got to pray. I have no time to go to the doctor every day and sit in his office to get a penicillin shot. Just give her a bracha. Anyway, guess what, ladies? 1 penicillin shot and I was fine. And don't ask me which foot it was, because today I don't even have a sign. So that's story number 2. Okay, now I'm going to tell you story number 3. Like I told you, my parents would go every year. So my mother decided that her time to go to New York would be during the convention. So in 1956, the Rebbe was way ahead of the women's lib movement, way ahead of everybody. He started a women's convention. And women came from all over. It was beautiful programs. And they also had an offshoot for the girls. So I came with my mom to the women's convention. And afterwards, we would have an audience. Anybody came from out of town was able to meet with this Rebbe. He wasn't so busy then. He was busy. But later on, he was like not normal busy. So we went past him and we had to go into, we had to have an audience. And I walk in with my mother, and my mother says to me, you don't know my mother, but if you knew my mother, you'd understand what I'm saying now. She was a very, very tough Russian lady. Beautiful lady, beautiful, incredible, physically, emotionally, mentally, very stable, but when she said something, you listen. She didn't have to say it twice. So she said to me, we're going to walk in together. I was about 13. And the Rebbe will talk to you. If he talks to you, you respond. And then when he finishes, I'm going to take my hand and I'm going to go like this, you know, out, out, out. And you walk out. I have a lot of private things to say. All right. So I walk in with her and he asked me what I learned in school. And I answer and I said, thank God, Baruch Hashem. I paid attention to my teachers and I answer, everything's fine. And then my mother says, okay, he's turning to talk to my mom. So I walk out and about 25 minutes later, my mother comes out and she says, the Rebbe wants to talk to you. I'm like, Ma, I was just get in now. And I got in right now. I'm like, what did I do wrong? Oh my God. Anyway, I walk in. I told you the Rebbe had a beautiful table. It was a table empty. And thank God he was just put his head down and was looking at the table, Baruch Hashem, because I was so nervous. I didn't know what I did wrong. And I walk in and where those two chairs were, those beautiful chairs, those plush chairs, you stop there. So I stood there and he looked up and he said, your mother told me that you run a Mesiva Shabbos group. Now, Mesiva Shabbos means a Shabbos gathering for different girls, you know, and tell me about it. Now here I'm 13 years old, right? So I said, oh, it's nothing. I'm sorry, it was not polite, but that's what I said. We go to all the homes, the children all go to public school. All their parents are Holocaust survivors. So we go, these girls, we only took care of girls because we were a bunch of girls ourselves. We go to their homes, we pick them up, we bring them to our home. My mother made sure we always brought everybody to our home so she saw our friends. And every one of us has a different room. I take them in the living room, my sister in the kitchen, my other sister in the den, you know. And we sing a song with them, we dance, we give them something to eat so they could say a bracha, so we can teach them to say a blessing. And then we say the second blessing. And then we tell them a story. Now, the only Jewish stories in those days were from the talks and tales. That's all we had. So we tell them a story from the talks and tales. It was in English. And then we walk them back home. Ladies, all of a sudden, this little 13-year-old thought she was 10 feet tall. The Rebbe gave me this biggest smile. I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? And he didn't stop giving me brachas and brachas, blessings and blessings for me and for the girls who are there. And I'm like, wow, it's really such a big deal. I mean, we were just raised all our life to give, to give, to give. So to collect, to bring the girls, to come take them to our house and sing and dance and talk to them and eat with them for 2 hours and take them back home. It wasn't a big deal, but the Rebbe made me into such an important young lady, I can't even tell you. So then he finished by saying like this, in the future, I shouldn't have to ask you what you do. You should tell me. So now whenever I do anything like spread Judaism, I talk to beautiful ladies like you, I write. Now I used to write when he was alive physically, I used to give it to him, but now I go to the cemetery, to the Ohel, beautiful place, and I write, guess what, Rebbe, I listened to you and I'm telling you this is what I did. I spoke to Chaya BENCHEMHOUN's beautiful ladies and blessed them all. Anyway, so I want to conclude the story. Many years later, my parents were honored by the Hebrew Academy of Cleveland, Ohio, because my parents brought more children to the school than anybody put together. They brought hundreds of children, mostly Russian children. My parents would meet them at the airport. My mother would take the kids by hand, bring them to the principal and say, I'm not moving till you put them into this Jewish school. So, but they don't speak Hebrew. They don't read. They don't know. What should I do? I should take an 11-year-old and put her in kindergarten? My mother said, I don't care what you do. I'm not moving. So after a while, after about 100 kids, they had to get a whole building. They rented a shul with a beautiful building, and hundreds of Jewish kids are observant and Orthodox today because of my parents. Because my mom said, if they don't learn now, they're never going to be Jewish. Because in Russia, even their grandparents didn't know anything about Judaism. They knew they were Jewish because they had to write Zhid. Zhid means Jew. And they knew there was anti-Semitism, but they knew nothing else. So to honor my parents, we decided, my sister and I, that we were going to go to Cleveland, Ohio. So we get on this airplane. The whole flight is 1 hour, not 12 hours by bus. And when the plane we're about to deplane, I stood up and I turned around to talk to my sister Rivka, and I'm like, Rivka, do you see what I see? She says, yeah, what happened to Cleveland, Ohio? Everybody's wearing a sheitel? Because when we grew up, the only wig was my mom and a couple of Rebbes. Very few people wore him. And here I'm sitting on the plane. There are about 22 ladies, all graduates of the Hebrew Academy, all coming for this reunion. And guess what? They're all covering their hair. So as we're talking, one of them turns around and asks me, are you Henya? I'm like, yes. And then she says, my sister, are you Rivka? Are you Rachel? I'm like, how do you know us? They said, you don't recognize us? We all went to your Mesiba Shabbos group. We all learned about Judaism through you girls. And it turns out that we convinced many of them to leave public school, to nudge their parents and send them to Hebrew Academy. And those parents that refused, sent them to Talmud Torah, which is after school. And every one of these 22 girls, every one of them came through our doors. And then a seminary that's after high school, they all went to Israel to learn in a Jewish girls' college. It's unbelievable. So I said to my sister Rivka, now I know the blessings the Rebbe gave. He didn't only give it to me. He gave it to anybody who attended. We know of these 22 girls. I mean, there were hundreds of girls that went through all my sisters and myself. Could you imagine how many people were touched and how many generations were saved? How many Jews were saved to marry Jewish and to be observant? So that's my 13-year-old story. Then, how much time do I have? Another 10 minutes? Okay. Anyway, I'm going to tell you another story. So the Rebbe said to my father, what do you plan to do when you get to Cleveland? He said, well, really, my mom was a business lady and my grandfather was in business, and I plan to be in business too. I think I'll start selling watches. So the Rebbe looked at him and said, I think that you should become a shochet or a chazan or a rav. You should be a kosher slaughterer, you should be a chazan, a cantor, or you should be a rabbi of a synagogue. So, all right. So my father went and he learned shchita, how to be a kosher shochet. And in parentheses, I just want to tell you what kind of a shochet, a kosher slaughterer my father was. You have to hear the story. Before my father slaughtered a chicken, he would take the chicken, he would pat it, he would kiss it, then he would say the blessing, and then he would shecht it. Tell me, if you eat such meat from such an animal, how kind can you be? How gentle, how compassionate. That's the kind of a human being my father was. Anyway, so he became a shochet, and the Telz Yeshiva, the school that we used to go to, the rabbis, only wanted to eat his meat because they trusted him 1,000,000%. Once he became the shochet, they only ate from him. So that was good for us. But my father noticed that a lot of these immigrants were saving pennies and they were buying non-kosher chickens because it cost a few cents less. So every single week, and I remember we're also immigrants and we're barely making it. By this time, they already had 7 children. So he would take, every single week, he would take chickens, and for free, F-R-E-E, he would go to their homes and he would say, I'm giving you this chicken. Don't buy non-kosher chickens. Every week, I will bring you a chicken until you're able to afford it. You don't owe me anything. Just make sure you and your children eat kosher. And I want to tell you, we have a friend of ours who told us that she thinks the reason why she became a Chabad in college and she became observant is because of the kosher chicken. She still remembers my father coming there to the house and delivering this kosher food. At any rate, my father became a rabbi of a shul and he became the cantor in the shul too. Now listen to this story. So it's my mom's turn again to go back to New York, and she has an audience with the Rebbe again, many, many years later. And she walks in and the Rebbe says, so how is your husband, the rabbi? She says, well, he's a rabbi, but he doesn't have a congregation. The Rebbe says, why? I thought he had a beautiful synagogue. She said, yes, but the day after they hired him, they removed the mechitza. The mechitza is the partition between the men and the women. He walked into shul and there's no mechitza. There's no partition. So he said, I'm sorry to the president of the synagogue. Sorry, Mr. Medorsky, but I cannot be a rabbi here. So the Rebbe said, well, ask them to put her back on. She says, Rebbe, you don't understand. No, she didn't say that. I'm saying that. The Rebbe, they all went to public school. The father came here as a very observant man. He came here in the 1800s. There was no yeshiva. They went to public school. The doctors, the lawyers, they're not observant. They're not interested in anything Jewish. And we've spoken to them many times and they're not interested. So the Rebbe says, well, you know what? Maybe they shouldn't have a Chabad mechitza that's so high. Go to Young Israel and they have a lower mechitza. It's a partition. It's also kosher. So let them get a lower mechitza, as long as they get a partition, any kind. So my mother says, Rebbe, they're not interested in anything Jewish. Okay, the synagogues for one reason only, for tax deduction. That's it. They don't even come to synagogue. So in the middle of talking, suddenly the Rebbe went into dveikus. You know what dveikus is? He lowered his head and he went into another world. It's the only way I can explain it. He went into a trance. And my mom's standing there and she's like, oh my God, should I go out? Should I call the secretary? Should I call a doctor? No, she says, I'm standing in the presence of a holy man. Everything will be fine. Everything will be fine. She kept saying, God, everything is fine. Everything is fine. And then the Rebbe lifted up his head and he said, well, if the president is not going to make a partition, his father will take care of it from the other world. Those are the words he said. His father will take care of the partition from the other world. And that was it. The whole audience ended. My mother walked down and she's like, oh my God, the man is not around anymore. The man is like up there in heaven, you know? Okay. She comes home, nothing. 1 week, 2 weeks. In a month's time, my father gets a knock on the door and the president sends a very important member of the shul to the house. He says, Rabbi Kazin, please come back. We miss you. We want you to be the cantor. We want you to be the rabbi. He says, I want to come here. You're good people, but I'm sorry I can't because there's no partition. There's no mechitza. Rabbi, whatever mechitza you want, we're putting up. He said, really? So he came to the synagogue. They put up a kosher mechitza. Half, the partition was all the way to the ceiling, but they only made, my mother said, make a half a partition, make curtains. So sometimes they can open it up. There's certain times you can look into the men's side too, you know? So they made beautiful mechitza. It's still there till today with beautiful white curtains, with little tiny holes inside. And my father started to be the rabbi again. Anyway, he was very curious what happened. After a few weeks, this man comes over to him because the president never came to synagogue. He used to come once a year only for his father's yortzeit. When his father passed away, just to say Kaddish. So this man comes over and says, aren't you curious? He said, actually, I'm very curious. He says, well, let me tell you what happened. He said, on his father's yortzeit, when his father passed away, the day of his, of his passing, he came to a dream to his son, Mr. Medorsky, and he was, what was he? He was a builder. So I don't know if I should tell you the whole story. I won't make it so glorious. I'll just say, he came and he threatened him and he said like this, if you listen to Rabbi and do exactly as he says, you will stay on this world. And if not, you're coming to visit me up there. And he woke up and he said, oh my God, my dad, I know my dad. If he says it, he's going to do it. So he immediately made that phone call. And to this day, we have a beautiful synagogue called the Tzemach Tzedek Shul on Lee Road with the same beautiful mechitza. Tell me that's not incredible. Is that something? Okay. So by the way, I have to tell you, we found out that my sister, who's called Chaya Bluma Weinberg, her name is Chaya Bluma, has the exact same name as Mr. Modorsky's wife, Chaya Bluma, which means that we are related. It turns out that the other side of my family sides was also named Modorsky. I'm flipping how we were all sort of kind of related. Okay, so that's another story, but how the Rebbe thought of everybody in a very positive way. Okay, another one. Let's see now. I wrote them down because at a certain time, okay. Like I told you, the Rebbe said to start Neshei Chabad, gathering of women. So once again, it was my mother's turn to go. Every year they go, once her, once him. So the Rebbe said to my mom, tell me, do you have a junior Neshei Chabad, a junior women's group? And she said, oh, no, we have Neshei Chabad. We have a women's group and everybody's invited. And the Rebbe said, well, I have to tell you something. The young women do not like to go to a gathering with the older women. So you have to start a junior group. My mother said, but it's so hard for me. I have 7 little children. I help my husband in the chicken store, and I'm running this, and I'm taking care of the Russians. And the Rebbe said, well, your children will help you. Guess what, ladies? We did help. Whenever my mom had a gathering and she needed a speaker, one time it was Henya, Laine, that's me. One time it was my sister. One time it was somebody else. She said, it's important to learn in school. Never miss a day of school. But when you have to go out and help somebody, especially to do what the Rebbe says, you can take off an hour or 2, which we did. Okay. I am about to finish, but I'm just about to finish here. I wanted to conclude by telling you, one more very, very nice story, because I think this is important. My grandmother, my mother's mother, I told you that my mother's father, my grandfather, was killed when she was very young, but they never knew that he was killed because the Russian, the communists, they lie about everything. So when they took him away, my grandmother went to the police station to ask, where is my husband? I'd like to send him food. They said, well, he's not here. He's in a different prison. So she went to that other prison and they said, well, he's not here. So she went to the 3rd place and they said, if you ever inquire again, we will put you in prison. So for many, many years, she was what's called an aguna. Aguna means that she's not a widow. She doesn't know if her husband's alive or dead. So she can't remarry. And we can't say Kaddish, and we can't name the babies. And she's like stuck. She's in limbo. So when she came to the Rebbe, many years later, like in the 50s, by that time, he was killed in 1937. They took him away on Rosh Hashanah, and they killed him on Xmas. That was the day they killed thousands and thousands of religious Jews, of religious people. They also killed anybody who owned a business. If you owned your own business and you didn't belong to the government, at the same time they killed him, they also killed the person who owned his house, because how dare you own a house that belongs to the government? A person who owned a mattress factory, how dare you own a mattress factory? Everything belongs to the government. Anyway, there were a lot of people who were slaughtered that day for no reason at all, just because they're communist. Socialism, communism, it's the worst, don't believe a word they say. They're liars, they lie through their teeth. So she went to the Rebbe and she said, just tell me, is he alive or dead? I just want to know. This is 1930s. This is like 30, 40, 56. That's like over 20 years later. So the Rebbe never said anything negative, in case you don't know. If you ever read about him, it was a very positive person. And he just looked down on the table and he said, I am not God. Those were his words. I am not God. And she walked out and she said, now we know that he's not here. You can name your babies after him. And I'm starting to say, we didn't know when to say Kaddish, but I'm going to light a candle, Erev Yom Kippur. I'll put one for her husband also. And it took until Perestroika, which is like 50 years later, for us to find out the day that he was killed. Anyway, so I just thought that was very interesting how the Rebbe never wanted to say anything negative, but after so much headache, he finally calmed her nerves. Okay, just going to conclude. This is not one of my stories, but I'm sorry, I have to say one more story. This is too incredible for me to pass on. So you know that the Rebbe would give dollars every Sunday for like 6 years, right? So my children were sitting at the Purim table. We had a Purim table, and all my children were sitting there, and I had all these guests, and all of a sudden the alarm goes off. We used to have an alarm. The minute the Rebbe would come out to speak, this alarm went off, and all my guests got up and started to run. And my husband said, I don't know if we should go. I'm like, why? We have to go. It's Purim. He says, because the children aren't dressed nice enough to go to, like my husband said, like you go to a melech, you go to a king, you have to be dressed in your best. And my daughter was wearing a sombrero, you know, it was Purim. And my other daughter always wanted to be an Israeli soldier. So she wore a soldier outfit. And where it said Sahal, the Israelis, I wrote Tzivos Hashem, you're in the army of God. And my little baby was in what was she? She was, I think she was a funny guy. What do they call them? A clown. She was a clown. So we have somebody dressed like a Mexican with the sombrero, you know, and the tie and the flary skirt. Then we have the Israeli soldier, and then we have the clown. So I said to my husband, listen, I'm taking my children because I think the Rebbe will enjoy seeing children dressed up for Purim. That's what Purim is all about. So my husband says, okay, if you go, I'll come along. So we run, but by the time we finished arguing and going, they shut the door. I said to my children, we're not moving. We're standing right here. And we stood, and the door opened up, and we were the first ones to walk in. So my little girl, Mrs. Sombrero, Debbie, today her name is Rubenstein, walks past the Rebbe, and he gives her $1, and he says, Bracha v'atzlacha, you should have a good year, a good life. And she says, Asheinem Dank, Rebbe. And nice thank you to you, Rebbe. And he looks at her and he says, gracias. She don't know what the Rebbe's talking about. Gracias, who speaks Spanish? Okay, then, but she was polite. She walked away. Then my next daughter goes over and she's wearing the soldier uniform, remember the whole cap, and the Rebbe salutes her. Wow. And my little baby passes by and the Rebbe gives her the biggest smile. So we walk out and my dubby says, Mommy, what did the Rebbe say to me? What does gracias mean? I said, it means thank you in Spanish because you're wearing a sombrero. You're in Spanish. You look like you're coming from Mexico. She says, wow. I said, you better go learn Spanish. You better go learn Spanish. All right. My little girl with a uniform, she goes, and Mommy, why did the Rebbe salute me? I said, because you're going to marry a soldier in the army of God, a shaliach, a Chabad emissary. And then when she got married, I told her, you didn't marry the soldier, you married the general. And my little one, you know, she said to me, oh, what about me? I said, you're going to marry a very happy guy. He's going to crack jokes all day. Anyway, forward on, my daughter turns 22 and they tell her, they mention about a young man from Buenos Aires, Argentina. Hint, hint. And she says, Ma, I'm not going out with him. You always say marry somebody just like you, so you have less to worry about. What do I know about Spanish people? What do I know about Mexicans? What do I know about Argentinians? I want to marry somebody just like you. Somebody from Europe or Russian. I'm like, I don't know. I hear nice things about him. He sounds like he's a Chabad guy. I think you should go out. You don't have to marry him. Go out and see for yourself. Maybe he doesn't even speak English. Go and learn, see for yourself. So she goes out with this adorable young man and she comes back and she's like, Ma, guess what? He speaks English. And you know what? He's really nice. He's actually very nice. And guess what? She comes home after like a few days. I think it was like the 4th day. She says, I'm so mixed up. I don't know what to do. He's such a nice guy, but I don't know. I can't make up my mind. I wish the Rebbe was alive. Then I could talk to him and I can ask him. I'm like, honey, I don't know what to tell you, but if he's nice And, religious wise, you agree with the same things. And he's Chabad, and he drinks Chal Yisrael, and he learns the Tanya, and he believes in everything you do. No, I got to go to the Ohel. I got to go to the Ohel. So she goes to the Ohel. That's the cemetery where the Rebbe is there. And she gets on the phone and she says, Mommy, the Rebbe told me it's a good idea. I'm like, are you all those crazies? You also talk to the, no, Ma. Do you remember when I was 10 years old? I passed by the Rebbe and he said to me, gracias, that's an answer for my husband and I'm going to marry him. And we had all forgotten the story. However, I'm sorry, Chaya, I have the video. I should have given it to you. You could see exactly how the Rebbe says the words, gracias, how he salutes my other daughter. Anyway, I just want to conclude with this last thing. It's not a story about me. I heard it today. I was trying to get some, ideas, and I heard this most incredible story. I want to leave it with you because all the stories I told you are good, but this one I think tops them all. Rabbi Rabbi Yossi Jacobson, told a story of when he was a young guy, he was like 16 years old, he was in 770. And during Simchat Torah, when they all dance, all of a sudden he sees Rabbi J.J. Hecht walking in. He had to walk very far. He was a rabbi of a congregation, so he had to walk, quite a while. So he came in like very, very late. And as he walks in, everybody's looking at the Rebbe, right? He notices the Rebbe takes his hand and throws him a kiss. He throws Rabbi JJ a kiss. He's like, I can't believe this. He's like, why is he throwing him kisses? Anyway, all right, we don't even touch the hand of such a tzaddik, but he didn't say anything. 20 years later, he goes to speak in a certain place and he meets up with Rabbi JJ's daughter, Rivki Abramowitz, and he says to her, I'm just wondering, all these years, why did the Rebbe throw your father a kiss? I've never, ever seen this in my entire life, not before and not after. She said, let me tell you what happened. My father has a synagogue and he was very busy with the shul. And after Hakafot, after they finished dancing with the Torah, he said he slept very little. He was very, very tired. He sat down on the couch and he closed his eyes. And then he jumped up and he said, I'm going to 770 to the Rebbe's Hakafas. I'm going there. So he says, I'm coming with you. So that's why he comes in there. And on the way, I just dreamed while I was sitting on the couch. And in the dream, I saw the face of the Rebbe. And I just had such a warm feeling. I was so in love with him. I just wanted to give him a kiss. So I walked over to the Rebbe in my dream and I said, Rebbe, can I give you a kiss? And then I hugged him and I kissed him. He said, and I came to the city and the Rebbe threw a kiss. Now I always knew that's what I think, but I didn't know that he even knows what I dream. So I want to leave you with this. God has blessed us with the most incredible human being on the face of the earth. And we are very, very fortunate to be part of this group because what Chaya is doing is exactly what the Rebbe told us to do. Touch another soul wherever they are. Thank you all. Love you.
That was amazing. Thank you, Henya. You are going to come back in our future. Please, God, if you're okay with it. I actually know your daughter and her husband, Rabbi Chaya. They are shluchim in Bell Harbor, Florida. Wonderful people, cutest couple. I love that story, so thank you. But the Rebbe knew. So before we conclude with the video, I just want to share a couple of words, if that's okay. Tonight's class, I was just waiting for the name. A wonderful, wonderful woman passed away in her 40s. My aunt spoke about it today in Florida. She was a yoga instructor and did meditation. She's friends of many of my friends in Florida, and I'm sending condolences, but she passed away so suddenly. Within minutes, she was in the gym, she was healthy, she was happy, she cared about so many people. She was a yoga instructor. Her name is Miriam Bas Michel. Her neshama should have the highest aliyah. And I just want to send my biggest condolences to all my friends in Florida who lost their friend and you couldn't be here tonight. And may Hashem comfort you all and just send Mashiach already. So that's how the real comfort will be. And by us learning Torah tonight and dedicating it in her memory, we will definitely bring Mashiach closer, and hopefully we'll be reunited really soon. But we also believe as Jews, when one dies, their body just dies and their soul lives on for forever. So every mitzvah that we do today for our loved ones, it really, it reflects up there and it really helps them. Just like Henya shared a story about the father coming to their son in a dream. It's real. This stuff is real. So if you guys can all write down Miriam Bas Michal and take on a mitzvah in her honor, that we'll do to elevate her neshama and to bring comfort to her family and friends. And I hope the real comfort comes real soon. So thank you. Thank you, Henya, for sharing. I really enjoyed everything that you said tonight. I took notes of what the Rebbe said. I love hearing Rebbe stories. I was blessed to have known the Rebbe till I was 9 years old, but now he lives on in a much deeper way with his teachings. But I want to share with you guys, Gimel Tammuz is happening on Shabbat, the Rebbe's day of passing, and it's a day that's celebrated by so many. The Rebbe affected Jews and non-Jews alike. And I'm going to share with you 2 short videos that happened to me. But one of the videos, I took an Uber ride, and I will explain it to you after you see this video, but I filmed this, it went viral, and only a year after it happened. But the Rebbe was giving me a message and also the world a message, and I will share with you after the videos are shared. But I made some good friends in the Uber. So what are you listening to?
Music.
Nice.
Like
No, I love it. You know who plays it?
This is my picture.
Oh my God, that's my Rebbe. Wait.
Our.
Rebbe. Wait, hold on. I'm putting this. This is crazy. Oh my goodness. Could you look here for a minute?
Sure.
Can you tell me how you know, it's our Rebbe, how you know him? I grew up on the block that he...
Okay, so what happened, I met a guy and then I asked him about like going to synagogue. He said that, why you want to go over there? I'm like, what do you mean? I want to hear the word of God. And he said that God is not for you. I'm like, what? Then I met a lady.
Okay, so the video, we had a conversation after, and he told me that he goes to the resting place of the Rebbe at the Ohel, and someone told him he can go, a different person. And I explained to him that God is for everyone because God created you. And if he created you, then that means that you're part of God's creation. And we all have our purpose in life. A Chinese man has his mission. A Mexican has their mission. All cultures have their mission. A Jew has their mission. Non-Jews have their mission. We Jews have 613 laws. We have a Torah that we have to follow, which is our GPS, really our GPS to life. And if we follow it, we'll be on the right path and the right direction, and we won't go off the path. And I told him, I said, you have 7 Noah laws that you have to keep, and that's your purpose in life, to make the world a better place. And he's like, I know. And I actually gave him money to buy a book about the Rebbe, and it was Rebbe by Telushkin. And he messaged me. I have his number, and he sent me a picture of the book that he ordered, because I gave him the money to order it, and he was so happy with it. And then he told me in the Uber, that wasn't on video, he said every time he goes to the resting place of the Rebbe, he gets answered. Whatever he asks for happens for himself. And I was like, I have to hear this lesson from a non-Jewish Uber driver, that we have a Rebbe, and the Rebbe is a tzaddik of our generation. And the non-Jewish man acknowledged the Rebbe. He carries a picture of the Rebbe with him, which is I was just blown. I was mind blown by this. And I don't know if you heard my voice, but I was just like, what are you listening to? He was playing a Hasidic melody, a niggin. And after we had a conversation, I have another video. He said, all music besides classical music and this music is nonsense. This is coming from a non-Jewish man. So he must have had he has a very high soul, and he's just really in touch with what's right. And he was telling me, go to the Ohel if you want an answer. Stop with the nonsense of trying other people. The Rebbe is our guide, and he left us his teachings, and his teachings are amazing. And he was here for Jews and non-Jews alike. So this happened 2 years ago. Didn't go viral till a year after. It was something that I had to reflect about the Rebbe. And let me tell you, I connected. And every time I need the Rebbe, he's there for me, and he gives me answers. He could send it to me through a Facebook message. He can send it to me through a video. He can send it to me through a friend, but I do get answers. And I'm just a simple person who just connects to him. And if you connect to the Rebbe and you connect to God, God will find a way to give you an answer. It's true. It's the proof is in the pudding. I mean, I heard it from this man in the Uber driver. So I thought it's really appropriate to share this with you all, for those that either never met the Rebbe and says, hey, this is not for me. The Rebbe was for everyone. Jews and non-Jews alike came to him. People came to him for blessings, and it was really special. Before we conclude with our last video, I just wanted to share with you, on Troy Avenue, there's a cleaners, Troy Cleaners, I think that's the name. Amazing cleaners in Crown Heights, and there's an amazing guy that does alterations there. I don't know his name, but let's call him John. And John is a really nice gentleman, and he is a Gentile and amazing. And I went over to him, and someone gave me a card that is a 7 Noah law. So I was like, you're such an amazing person, and you're so kind. I want to give this to you. It's a picture of the Rebbe. So he pulls out of his pocket a picture of the Rebbe that he has in his pocket, and he says, I keep this picture in my pocket because my pockets are never empty. I always have what I need. Another Gentile. And I was like, I should really put the picture of the Rebbe in my pocket. So I'm sharing this story with you because the story is not for me, it's for everyone. And I asked him if I could film it, and he says, sure, I have it on camera. So I will send it out to anyone that wants it. Reach out. My number's in the WhatsApp. I will send you the video. I'm going to find it and send it to you, of this amazing man. Let's call him John. I'm not great with names. Now we're going to conclude with our last video. Now, before we press play with the video, I just want to say that there's people in our lives, and we can pass them every single day, and we can say hello, but then there's people in our life that we see every single day, and we could actually ask them about their lives, and we could interact with them. So I took the opportunity to interact with my gardener. His name is Davis, and I love him, and I know him since I'm a little girl, and he's so friendly and so bubbly and so funny and so great. And every time I see him, I'm like, you know my name? And he's like, of course I know who you are. You're Minkowitz. And it's just really cute. I can meet him on Easton Parkway, or I can meet him on Kingston Avenue. But one day I took the opportunity to ask him a question, and this is what he told me. And I asked him permission to share, and he said yes. Davis, what do you want to tell the world today?
Do mitzvahs.
What kind?
Help people with kindness, like the Rebbe said. Good things, like the Rebbe said.
You met the Rebbe?
God met the Rebbe 30 years ago.
Yeah, tell me more.
35 years ago.
Tell me more.
It's a long story.
Could you tell me?
Right now, I'm at the end of the day. I'm done for the day.
Okay, so I have a tendency where I got him at the end of the day, but he will tell me the story. His father was really close to the Rebbe. His father has many dollars, and he's such a great guy, and he's my friend. And people laugh at me sometimes, and they're like, you talk to everyone, but by talking to people, you get information. And he said, a very important lesson for all of us, do a mitzvah. And he's like, of course I know the Rebbe. The Rebbe acknowledged everyone. He was a little boy, and he knew the Rebbe through his father, and he's really so great. So next time you see someone in your life, and besides saying hello, make conversation with them. Like, I see this guy every single day of my life, since I'm a little girl on the block. I didn't always talk to him, but now I'm a lot more unshy. I used to be a very shy person, and he's really a kind man, but he gave me a lesson that day, do a mitzvah. So we should all do mitzvahs. I hope these videos inspired you like they inspired me to do better and to be better. And we can learn from everybody and be the reason why someone smiles today. And the Rebbe, really, all day and night, he gave his life to us. Every single day, he took a few minutes to spend time with his wife. The Rebbe wasn't blessed with children. And someone came to his wife and they said, where are your children? And that's a really insensitive question. And she said, my children are in 770. That actually makes me cry. There's a song. And the Rebbe and her really believe that we were all her children, and anyone that connects, we're connected to them. So if you've never been to the Ohel, maybe consider going. If you want me to arrange it, I could. If you'd like to write into the Rebbe, please consider it. But if you're not ready, that's okay. But I would tell everyone to just connect and just to do an extra mitzvah, an extra good deed, and just be more like the Rebbe, because what we heard from Henya, such beautiful stories that I never heard. And the Rebbe was so practical, he wasn't just like someone that preached. He really gave practical advice to people, and he really cared about every single person, not just about the Hasidim or people that grew up in 770 around him. He cared about every single Jew and non-Jew alike in the world, and he just spread goodness and kindness to the world. And may we merit to have the redemption of Mashiach. And I do believe that we are going to bring it, especially this class. So thank you everyone for coming on. Thank you, Henya. Thank you all. And looking forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you so much. This was wonderful.
And if anyone would like to add something, you can.
Thank you so much. This is Helen. This was wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I met the Rebbe when I was 18 years old, 18 or 19 years old. I went to hear for bringing, and I sat in the nosebleed seats, and I'm now 68, and I still couldn't remember his eyes following me. When I was living in Jersey, we used to go once a month. I feel badly that since we're living in Florida, we're not getting there. I've written him several times. I wish it's just amazing stories and very inspirational. Thank you for everything.
How lucky are you that you got to meet the Rebbe?
I didn't meet him. I only saw him from the nosebleed seats.
But he saw you.
Yeah, yeah, because he made everyone feel like you were the only one in the room, even though there were thousands of people there.
Wow.
So
I know our friend Laine met the Rebbe as well, right? And you shared with us many times, and other people are meeting him now through his teachings. And that's, if you connect to him, it's okay. Sometimes we don't have to meet someone to know him. The Rebbe was for everyone, and sharing is caring. And that's why I share stories, because I feel that it brings so much light to my life hearing stories. And I want to share what I love. And I love the Rebbe, and I love what he, like he told Henya, I'm not God. He was such a practical, amazing man, but he knew the answer, but he said it in such a gentle way. And he guided everyone how they needed. And he still does. And I see it in my own life, like just by seeing Davis, like giving me the message, do a mitzvah, the Rebbe, like he's here, he's with us. A tzaddik is here for forever. And just like I believe my grandmother, I hope she's proud, Rivka Dina Bas Yosef Yehuda, when someone passes away, their bodies are gone, but their souls are still alive. And may we merit to have all our loved ones, and we merit to all meet the Rebbe together with Mashiach and all our loved ones together so soon, because it's happening. We're in that time. Every day there's another Torah class. It's so busy, so many things going on, and everyone's like wants to be on every single class, and this never happened. And the Zoom world, and it's mind blowing how life is really at our fingertips. And it says in Mashiach's times, that's what's going to happen. Like Cash App, send someone a little, oh, I need to send you money. It's so easy. Click, send. Oh, I'm in a store, just connect my phone. It's it's so easy, and everyone should just have everything easy in their life. That's my blessing. And connect to the Rebbe. If anyone wants the Rebbe's email, please, the OHEL's email, to send a letter to the Rebbe. It gets faxed in. You can, however you want to connect. If you want to read a book about the Rebbe. There's so many out there, amazing stories. But we had to hear from an Uber driver and from my gardener. I hope that's inspiring tonight, because I get very inspired by these people. And yeah. And if anyone wants to add something before we go,
I would like to say something.
please do.
Chaya?
When you share.
Okay, first of all, I just want to tell Henya, you were so inspiring, and you really gave us a feel for what life was like back in 1952, 53, whatever year of the immigrants and so on. But I want to say that I'm an American. My great-great-grandparents came to America, so we're old-time Americans, but I connected with her stories because my parents moved to Miami Beach in 1960. There was no Chalav Yisrael. There was no kosher food. So what did we do? Well, there was a live chicken market, and my dad is a rabbi and he's a shaychet, so he shechted the chickens and brought them home to kosher them. So we were all his little helpers. So I know how to kosher a chicken. Chalav Yisrael, well, all of Miami was not developed yet. There were milk farms all over, and that was our monthly field trip. We went, my father watched the milking of the cows and we brought home. And yes, my mother would take off the cream, and we had this old-fashioned ice cream maker. She would make the ice cream and so on. But there was another thing what she mentioned about the shul with the mechitza. So my father started an Orthodox shul, started off in a small little storefront. And after a couple of years, they got some money together to build a building, and they got the building built, but no furnishings. It's just cement walls and cinder block and so on. And a long time, his majority of the people there were sounds like Henya's crowd, not very religious. Maybe their grandparents were, but some of them were a little bit anti. And there was one man who came over to my father and promised him to donate a lot of money, and he has a lot of rich people, and he will bring a lot of money to be able to finish off the shul, with one condition. Guess, no mechitza. He did not want a mechitza. So on one hand, what kind of an nisayim is that for my father? Of course, the answer is no. Take your money and goodbye. But that's what he had to say. No, I'm sorry. But it's easier said than done. But it wasn't so much of an nisayim, because of course he wasn't going to not have a mechitza. But shortly after that, within a month or two, a very rich man from New York moved down. His name was Mr. Turner. And he approached my father, and he wanted to donate. He had just lost his wife. He wanted to donate all the finishing. He put in marble and stained glass and carpet and fancy chairs, everything in donation in memory of his wife. And then as far as religion, the rabbi has the say. And let me tell you, there were many people that were members that really, anytime there can be an issue about Yiddishkeit or very religious, they were complaining. Hatikva was a very big thing. They wanted Hatikva and they wanted Hatikva. And this man, Mr. Turner, if he ever heard any complainers, he knew how to quiet them. He used to show them if something wasn't fixed, go take care of this. Don't worry about the religion. The rabbi takes care of that. So there, my father was able to see so quickly an answer to, yes, of course he did the right thing, but you don't always see the answer right away. But in that case, yes. So I just related to what Henya said, and I just want to say thank you, Henya. You were amazing. And you have lange gesunte Jahren together with your husband, and Taka celebrate the 75th with all of us, with Mashiach Tzidkenu, and lots of Chassidus Yiddish nachas from your children, and to everybody. That's all I wanted to say.
Amen.
A good Chaydish to everybody.
Yes. Have an amazing Rosh Chodesh. Your month should be blessed. Your year should be blessed, and everything. And good night. And I love you all.
Thank you so much.
Naomi.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chaya.